What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with a video, and today we've got the box office breakdown for the weekend of October 25th to the 27th, and holy cow, Joker is continuing to whoop a bunch of ass at the box office, coming in once again at number one of the box office in its fourth week. So it was knocked off the number one spot last weekend because of Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which was the new Walt Disney production. Walt Disney production has dropped 50% domestically in the past week, which is definitely on the higher end of things. Definitely not as high as it could be. I think a lot of us were speculating that it would probably be closer to 60%. So it's definitely not the most terrible drop off, but it's really not doing well in the foreign markets, which I think is going to help that film hurt that film in the long run. But Joker came in at number one with a 35% drop. It has been dropping around the 30s, low 40s for the past 4 weeks. That's incredible. No one, I think, ever thought that the film would do as well as it's doing, let alone be as small of a drop-off as it's going. And it's only going to get better because of the fact we have got Halloween coming up this week, and obviously we all know a lot of people are going to try and see this on Halloween. Coming in at number two was Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. The Addams Family came in with a number three showing. Zombieland Double Tap rounds off the top four there. And new films, Countdown and Black and Blue, which came out at, half the theaters of the others, really, or almost half the theaters of the others, came in around, $9.9 million and $8.3 million, respectively. You also have the film called The Lighthouse, which is an indie film that's only available in a select number of theaters at this point in time, a film I really want to see, that is coming in here with $3 million. And Gemini Man continues to fail with $4 million. And yeah, 52% drop off from last week. Definitely not looking good for that film. But let's go ahead and dive into the numbers because we do now have updated international box office numbers as well. So now Joker has made over $570 million worldwide. That is without a China release. That is very impressive. The fact that it's doing as well as it is without having a release in China. It has now made around $850 million on a $55 million budget. This makes it officially the highest grossing rated R film of all time. It has now surpassed Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. Fun fact, Deadpool 1 did not get a China release either. Deadpool 2 did because they released the PG-13 version in China, and even that wasn't able to get it up quite enough. Joker, of course, rated R, not released in China, doing incredibly well. This puts it on pace indeed by probably next weekend to get close to the $900 million range, and definitely makes that possibility of hitting the $1 billion mark more possible. Now, the one thing that's going to hurt Joker in the long run is the fact that we do got bigger films coming out starting next week. Obviously, Terminator Dark Fate doesn't look like it's going to be a giant juggernaut. However, some people will still try and go see it just to make up their own minds about whether or not it's good or not. That's just the nature of the beast. However, I think that week 1 to week 2 drop for that film is going to be pretty damn bad because early reviews don't look good. And after seeing Dave Cullen's review of the film, I know that I really have no desire to pay to see that film. So maybe another film will get my money instead. Allegedly, of course. But $850 million for the Joker is pretty damn awesome. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Let's go ahead and see if we can update this number here. And that is indeed the official number. So Maleficent, Mistress of Evil is now right around $300 million. That's not good. Comparing this to every other Disney film this year, except, of course, for Dumbo, this is pretty anemic when you look at the overall numbers for the film. The film probably cost around $150 to $200 million to make. That means it probably cost around $400 million or so when you add in marketing budget. So this is a film that needs to make a pretty decent amount of money, around $500, $600 million if it wants to even break even. I don't think it's going to get to that point. I would say this is probably going to top off around $400 million, especially since we got more competition. Some might argue saying, well, Halloween season might be good for this because the kids are going to want to see it. However, we've actually seen an interesting trend with the next film I'm going to talk about being a lot more of a film, or being a bigger film rather, that kids have been wanting to see this weekend. Because if you actually look at this number, look at what came in at number 3. Actually boosting its numbers from last weekend with only a 28% drop off from its last week. And that was, again, this is in week 2, or rather, this is now in week 3. And at only a 28% drop in week 3, that's pretty damn good. And that is, of course, the Addams Family. So that is getting here $11.7 million. And as you can see, worldwide, it's not doing incredibly well. Again, $84 million overall. However, because of the Halloween season and because it is, of course, a Halloween staple, at least in my home, Addams Family is a Halloween staple, I would not be surprised if this film does very well on Halloween and also next weekend. Probably won't be enough to make this film a juggernaut. I'm not saying that at any means. However, I think that a lot of the families that otherwise would going to see Maleficent, Mistress of Evil might actually be going to see the Addams Family instead. I think it's going to be interesting to watch nonetheless. And another film that we talked about was indeed Countdown, which is one where you download an app, it tells you when you're going to die, and then it actually turns out to be true. Just sounds really stupid. Made $9 million. Doubt it's going to make that much more than that. But of course, it also was only released in around 2,000 theaters. So I don't think they were expecting it to make that much money either. And of course, we've got the very sad case of Gemini Man, which comes in at $125.5 million. This film was made for about $138 million production budget, meaning it costs well over $200 million to make. This is a film that probably won't even reach $200 million at the box office. So you're looking at a film that at the end of its run could be even close to an $80 to $100 million loss. That's really, really bad for this Ang Lee film. It makes sense as to why they kicked this script around for so many years, and I doubt we're going to get much more from it. So anyway, what are your thoughts about any of these films? I honestly am still very surprised that Joker is doing as well as it is. I mean, having seen it, I know how great of a movie it is, but usually great movies tend to be overlooked by audiences. So I hope that this is a sign to bigger studios that you can make a smaller film for a smaller budget. Make sure you get the right people behind the camera that's going to give you good cinematography, good writing, good acting, good direction, and that people will go out and support those films as long as they've got your big dollars promoting it. Because I think that's what it really comes down to, is the promotion factor. The reason why a lot of indie films don't really do that well today is because they don't get promoted in the same way that the bigger budget films do. And if you make a good film that gets good word of mouth, you're going to have a very low drop off from week 1 into week 2. Compare that to Maleficent, which has actually had some decent word of mouth. However, it is a film that most people look at and they say, I just have no reason to see this because it just looks like the same cookie cutter nonsense that Disney's been putting out for the past several years. Also, why do we need a sequel to the first Maleficent? Because I remember Maleficent from my childhood and it never was this. Also, one could say that's a bit of a darker film. And that has been an interesting take to see, is that the two films this year that have bombed from Disney have both been on the darker end. You had Dumbo, which was a lot darker. You had of course, oh my goodness, I'm blanking out on the dude's name right now. But you had the guy, of course, behind films like Nightmare Before Christmas and others, right? So taking on a much darker approach to it. If I remember the name, I'll try and pull it out there. But he made the darker approach to Dumbo, which also didn't really, affect that well. But also Maleficent as well. And it also, I think, comes to the fact that those are older stories. So the audiences that these are being made for, they're not, adults having kids. They're mostly grandparents having grandkids, and most of them really aren't going to be saying, oh, this is the film that I want to see because this film looks awesome. Instead, they say, oh, this looks a little dark. I don't really know if I want to bring my grandchild to this movie. And I think that's the reason why you're seeing a lot of these family films from Disney that are a little on the darker side, not really doing nearly as well. But Joker, on the other hand, rated R film, made for adults. Adults are going to see it in droves, and it's freaking awesome. Let me know your thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give us a subscribe. It helps us out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.